This guy scored 54 goals last season and no one wants to sign him. His name? Viktor Gyökeres. 39 goals in the league, 6 in the Champions League and 9 in cups. More than Haaland, more than Mbappe, and yet he's still being ignored. And the reason behind this might reveal a dark truth about modern football. Look guys, before we talk about Gyokures, we need to address the bigger pattern here. Because he's not the first star to tear up Liga Portugal, get a huge move and then fall flat. There's a bit of curse and history proves it. João Felix was supposed to be Portugal's next big thing. He lit up the league at Benfica, earning himself a record-breaking 126 million move to Atletico Madrid way back in 2019. But here's the catch, he never quite fit into Simeone's ultra-defensive system. Felix looked lost, inconsistent, and by 2023, he was being loaned to Chelsea and then Barca, still failing to live up to the hype. Then there's Darwin Núñez, an absolute beast at Benfica. He had pace, power, and 34 goals in his final season. Impressed by the numbers, Liverpool came knocking with a 75 million transfer. And while he's had his moments playing for the Reds, let's be honest, he's become football's biggest meme for his chaotic finishing.
Bruh.
Darwin isn't a flop striker by any means, but he's not what people expected for that kind of money. And it doesn't just stop here. Players like Anderson Talisca, Ola John and Yannick Diallo showed flashes of brilliance in Portugal, but when they left, they either couldn't adapt, disappeared into smaller leagues, or never reached those same heights again. In a few words, they never really delivered. So when a striker like Gyokures smashes in 54 goals in Portugal, clubs aren't just looking at the numbers, they're thinking, is he Darwin Núñez 2.0 or the next Bruno Fernandes? And that uncertainty is enough to kill interest fast. Another major reason top clubs are turning their backs on Viktor Gyökeres is his age. He's 27 years old, right in his prime for sure, but for Europe's elite clubs, that's not always a selling point. You see, in today's market, clubs don't just want goals, they want value. They want players that they can develop, build around, or even flip for profit. Take Benjamin Sesko for example. He's 21, oozes potential, and clubs are lining up for him, not just because of what he is now, but because what he could become. Or Victor Osimhen, 24 when Napoli signed him. If he flopped, they could still sell him in his mid-20s, but he didn't, and now he's valued at over 70 million pounds. But with Gyökeres, clubs know they're getting a striker already pushing 28. In just 2 or 3 years of time, he'll be on the wrong side of 30. And if things don't work out, there's no resale value, no second chance to make their money back. That's a huge risk. Modern football is just as much about financial logic as it is about goals. And in that world, a 27-year-old striker coming from a weaker league is a gamble most elite clubs simply aren't willing to take. If he fails to adapt quickly, if he struggles with form, fitness, or fitting into a new system, he could very easily go from a smart signing to an expensive benchwarmer, a player whose value drops fast and whose wages become a burden. That's the kind of move clubs regret. So while Gyökeres might be in his prime on the pitch, off the pitch he's already being seen as a short-term risk with long-term consequences. Now another reason why clubs don't want him is because of his ridiculously inflated price tag. Sporting are demanding anywhere from 80 to 100 million for Viktor Gyökeres, and that's where most clubs are losing it. Let's be honest, 80 million is the kind of fee you pay for a striker who's dominated a top 5 league, performed on the biggest European stages, and proven himself over multiple seasons. Gyökeres has had one great year in Liga Portugal, not in the Premier League, not in La Liga, not even in the Bundesliga. So for most elite clubs, that price just doesn't add up. And according to several reports, even Gyökeres himself is getting fed up. He wants to move, he wants to prove himself on a bigger stage, but Sporting are holding out for a massive fee, one that's scaring away potential buyers. Think about it from the club's perspective. They're going after a 27-year-old who has no resale value if it doesn't work out, and they'd be paying over 80 million for someone unproven at the elite level. It's not just a risk at the Sporting level, it also involves financial risk, and clubs are well aware of that. But here's where it gets risky for Sporting too. If nobody pays that price, and Gyokures stays for another season, against his will by the way, then that affects his motivation, the dressing room, and ultimately his market value. Sporting then could go from demanding 80 million to accepting a 35 or a 40 million a year later when the hype dies down. That's ultimately gonna cost them a lot. So yeah, Gyokures might be one of the most prolific strikers in Europe right now. But when you slap a world-class price tag on a player who's still trying to prove he belongs on that stage, don't be surprised when the top clubs walk away. Now, it's not that Gyokures isn't good, it's just that the timing, price, and risk just don't align for Europe's biggest clubs. He might still get his big move though, but if Sporting don't lower that asking price and act upon it fast, this could turn into a story of a player who picked at the wrong time and got stuck because of it. So what do you think? Is Gyokures worth the 80 million price tag? Would you take the risk if you were a top club? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dive football content every week. Till then, I'll catch you guys on the next one.